how on earth are you earning more than like a surgeon?
What you've really learnt and observed is to be successful in tech sales.
Can I make money here? Can I be financially free? Be a jack of all trades and really like be a sponge.
I don't think there's any other career in the world where you could literally stare down the barrel.
I've seen some of the top 1% salespeople earn like over $1.5 million AUD. So many things that I have learned from people that I've sold to.
I'm keen to hear your thoughts on like what does make a top 1% rep.
It's that mindset shift. Even now, I still cold call. They care about reducing risk, tangible risk.
Ben Lanciano, welcome to the Double Triple podcast.
Excited to be here. Very proud of what you guys have achieved in such a short time. Very, very proud.
Thanks, Ben. We're very stoked to have you on as an OG guest in the tech sales community. So it's going to be fun bringing out the story, how we first met, casting our minds back. For you being 10 to 15 years in a tech sales career, I'd love to bring out your origin story and then what you've really learnt and observed as to being really a top 1% super rep and what it takes to be successful in tech sales. So where shall we begin?
I was just saying before we started, like this could go down 40 different rabbit holes, but I could start with like a little bit about myself. So yeah, Ben Lanciano, enterprise account executive across the APJ region. As you mentioned, 10 to 15 years in SaaS sales, currently at a company called Chainguard, valued at about $4 billion. And we're scaling a rocket ship, so super excited to be part of that rocket ship. And just got back from Japan. I spent like 2.5 days, 12 meetings. It was just super, super full on. So back on deck now and scaling a really, really exciting company in the cyberspace.
Love it. I'm also really pleased, of course, that you chose to stick with cybersecurity, given all the rave of AI today. But we actually first met when I was at NextGen and you're at Okta back in the day. So yeah, and I remember actually I ran into you in North Sydney and you were evaluating the move to Chainguard. And you were just like, I've called all my friendly customers, I've done my research on this company, I'm making the move. Yeah. And I'm going to go join this rocket ship, which is really timely when we think about the people in the double triple community. Definitely. How do you evaluate the tech companies? Would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely. No, good point. And I think you were doing a client meeting and I remember, and I didn't want to interrupt you, and I'm like, Gabe's got a thing going on, so I'm just going to, run away. But no, you and I, we had humble beginnings when you were at NextGen. We got some funny stories, which we can share with the audience later. But how I evaluate tech companies is, I really just have this like methodology to it. I guess like the first one is, what's the TAM, right? What's the total addressable market? Is that large enough? Is it scalable enough? Like, what's the competitive differentiation? Like, almost like you do like a SWOT analysis, pest analysis. So you do some due diligence yourself. The second path to it is, who are your connections into that? Are they trustworthy advisors? Are they really giving you the advice to go and say, hey, I think Chainguard, or where I previously was, is a good choice to make and a good leap of faith? And then the third thing is like, hate to say it, but can I make money here? Can I be financially free? What does my family think about it? And I always say, I take the bias out. So those trusted advisors could be in tech. I actually try and ask, like you said, people outside. So customers, partners, the community, your friends, because sometimes they'll have their own perspective and they won't come with that, hey, tech sales bias hat. And I think that's really, really important. So those are kind of the 1 to 4 things that I'd say the due diligence, before I make that next leap of faith. Yeah,
I love that. I think it's just important to have like some sort of evaluation criteria in terms of the research and the decision making around making like a significant move like that.
Spot on, really cool. Yeah. It's like everything in life, right? Like if you buy a property, for example, you're going to do your own due diligence. You might ask your peers. You might ask your family and your friends and use Claude and all these things and buyer's agents and real estate agents. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing your due diligence to choose a new job, especially in tech, you could be burnt down the track. So it's really important to do that evaluation criteria, as you mentioned. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And we like to say that not all tech companies are created equal as well in the double triple program. Yep. Because there can be such a wide array of different technology companies out there. Mm-hmm. So, if we think about supply chain risk and cybersecurity, there's subdomains to domains, and there's all of the rave around AI. It's just very appealing.
You said that word first.
Yeah, exactly. Platform companies, vertical SaaS, and the mix goes on. So super interesting. I'd like to actually go back to your origin story though, Ben. I think you have a really interesting starting point, how you even made the move into Okta. I know that the big standout for us, Kayla and I were speaking about it just before, but I think your profile on LinkedIn was one of the very first when we were working together that Kayla observed, and she was like, Ben Lanciano, I want to mirror this career trajectory, the SDR through to the AE track, which a lot of people aspire to be. I'd love to rabbit hole what it actually takes to do that, but if you could take us through the origin story where you actually started, how you moved into Okta, and where you are today, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, it's very humbling to hear that. So thank you, and Kayla. And I think I probably take it back because I know some of the listeners are either in tech, looking to fulfill maybe a manager position or a VP level or a CRO level. But I also know that some listeners in your audience, your customers, are trying to get into that. So I'll try and mix between the two. So I have a bit of a rogue way into tech sales, if you like. My rogue way, and I was very green. So I had a marketing and business degree. I then did like a kind of a small, I would say, quasi scholarship where I ended up in the US, so California. Shout out Santa Clara University. It was awesome. Best experience, 3 months that I was there. And the exposure and the level of engagement I got to tech, this was back in like, I don't know, call it like, I'm old now, but like maybe like 16, 17 years ago now, was just incredible. I had lecturers from Google, lecturers from IBM, old school. And there was actually a lecturer who was he was like the head of sales for the VP North America region. Sadly, found out like a few years later he passed away. But during the lecture, the level of detail he instilled in, it was actually like, strangely enough, it was a sales-led process. It wasn't Sandler, it wasn't your traditional ones, it was something completely different. But it learned some of the skills that set me up, and a lot of we'll get to it, how to be successful, which is the value of building a champion, how to solve problems, why those problems are important, what is the impact. And so from now, I'm like, oh, you know what? I actually came here to study marketing and business, and I want to go and do marketing. So I used to sell clothing, I used to work at Target, and used to sell stuff for Glue and Zainarobe and all these. I was like, oh, I want to be a fashion guy. Well, I'm not really a fashionista anymore, but at the time I loved fashion. I always wanted to get into that. And fast forwarding, after I came back to Australia and I wrapped up my degree, I was like, you know what, actually I want to get into that tech thing. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have any friends in it at the time, to be honest with you. And I was like, I'm just going to go and look online. And I applied for one job, no other jobs at the time. So this might be a bit of a luck thing, and like all things happen for a reason. And I applied for a company called Fuji Xerox. So I don't know if anyone, really showing my age here, but like they sell printers, right? They sell managed services. They're huge in the US. They're called Xerox, and they're a Japanese kind of organization. And so I applied for this one job, and my parents, I remember them going like, "What? Like, it's one job. You got to apply for like 20. You just finished university." I was like, "Yeah, I'll do one and see if I get through." I ended up doing like something crazy, but I remember it was like 9 interviews. They flew me to Brisbane because the role was actually in Brisbane. So I got the job out of like hundreds of grads. There were 2 sales positions, the rest were finance, marketing, so it was a grad program. I stayed there for 3 years. I had to move my life to Brizzy, which is kind of cool because I used to live in the Gold Coast, so like stayed with mum, commuted from the Gold Coast to Brizzy every day. And the role was fascinating because it was, imagine you had studied for 3 years, and then it's like, cool, here's your credit card, right? I was like 21 years old. Here's a credit card. Here's some petrol money. And I think it was like 60K. So the base was 60K. I was like, oh, amazing. Like all my friends were like struggling and I was here like 60K to me at the time was like amazing. And then it was like, by the way, you'll also earn commission on everything you sell. And that was my motivation. I was like, you know what? I didn't grow up with money at all. Like my mum and dad, like very humble lives. And I was like, this is my time, like, to buy a property. It was always my dream. And so I went and, like, had a car, and I was driving in areas that, like, were interesting, from like Logan home to like, you know, very interesting areas of Australia and from Brisbane. I did really well, and I ended up transferring back to Sydney. And then I was like top 1%. I actually won like that year in my second year. I remember I closed the largest kind. I was selling in public schools. I ended up winning an award there, which was really, really, again, humbling, and I was super grateful. And the CEO at the time handed me the award. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And so that was my first job straight out of uni. And then, ended up going into like, from there into Okta, and now landing here. So that's kind of my humble beginning story.
Very cool. Very cool. It's interesting that you got exposure to the tech companies through that university experience, going over to Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Is there something that stood out to you in terms of like the exposure you got from the lecturers about tech or sales that just really ignited something for you to want to go and pursue that instead?
Yeah, it was. Like, so it's funny, right? Like the people you meet along the journey, you and I talk about this a lot. I had like guys that I studied with at Santa Clara, not so much I studied at ACU in North Sydney, but more so there. It's like, oh, my dad's the CEO of this like sandwich business. It's like, you know, soft white bread. His dad was the CEO of like the soft white bread. So from people like that to like, my dad owns a private equity. My dad's in tech. So I had this exposure to this network, which I still am close with a lot of those guys. They've gone off to do incredible things. And so not only was it the lecturers, so we had lecturers, like our marketing guy was ex-Google. The guy I told you passed away was ex-IBM head of sales for many years. It was the values that they instilled, but it was also being around the network of those other alumni, you know? And I think having that connection made me feel like this is actually where I want to go. It wasn't so much, Gabe, like, oh, is it, because back then it was, you know, maybe the Palos, the Ciscos, the Apples. It wasn't like the Oktas. This is like in uni, right? Okta, I didn't even know if Okta was a thing back then. But all I knew is, all right, I'm going to go to tech, which was to me Fuji Xerox, and I'm going to see how I go here. And so that was really important, knowing like, okay, cool, I have studied in college. If I need anything, I also have the people on my network now, not just from university, but I also have them from Santa Clara University if I need to lean and rely on them for information, going back to like trusted advisors. Thankfully, did the Fuji thing, migrated to Sydney, and that's kind of, that was the beginning for me, yeah. So it was a mixture of both.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah,
so 3 years selling, door knocking, cutting your teeth in sales with Fuji Xerox.
Business card, like you name it, old school.
High roller.
Having like the hot chips and gravy next to
Amazing.
me. Like, yeah, full of
chicken, salt and all.
Chicken, salt and all, you know, and then like stopping on the highway to eat. And I remember those times, and I miss them sometimes.
Yeah.
It was the people. It was before COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
And you were touching people. You were feeling, you were understanding them. And we got some hilarious stories of like me and my buddy driving around on highways in the Gold Coast and Brisbane with, it said no hockers. So like no door knockers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all. I'm like showing my age. And like people would yell at us.
Yeah, crazy.
Like full on yell.
Yeah. I'm sure that was really formative too as to what was to come next, which sounded like 60K base, commission on top of that. Did that for 3 years, and then you made a move into Okta.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to highlight what we describe at Double Triple as potentially considering something that's a bit of a hockey stick.
Yes.
Or making a very strategic move into the right company and role that will really set you up for long-term success in a tech sales career. I feel like you demonstrated that through your experience moving from Fuji Xerox into Okta, because from what I understand, you took a bit of a pay cut at the time. You moved into a BDR, SDR role, was it?
Yeah,
From
yeah.
like what was traditionally an AE role,
Spot
right?
on.
In a different company,
Yeah.
which is highly contentious in Double Triple, by the way. I just want to be an AE, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I fully understand that, and everyone's really different. But we do really believe if it's for the right company, take a seat on the rocket ship, whatever that rocket ship is,
Yes.
as the Eric Schmidt saying goes.
Yes.
And it's just like there's a lot to be said as to really backing the right rocket ship. What was that experience for you, Ben, if you could quantify that for us moving into Okta?
Yeah. Good question. And I think, you know, like you said to me, everyone's journey is different. There are some people listening here that are not so green. Ours exceptionally still, I would say, green in SaaS. So software as a service sales, I was still green at the time. So when I left Fuji Xerox, would you call Fuji Xerox selling SaaS, enterprise SaaS? No, I wasn't. And so I knew and I believed that I actually didn't have the skills. I wasn't as qualified as what I might have thought I was. And so it was awakening because when I left Fuji Xerox, I always said to myself, I still want to stay in this tech thing. But I had a bit of a gap. And so I ended up going, let me go and join this other company in between. And that company in between, we just went through the criteria. I didn't do my criteria. And so they wrapped up APJ very quickly. They shrunk it. I was let go 2 months in. I was also very green, and I thought that I was more qualified than what my skills, my traits, my experience, my qualifications allowed me to do. Whilst I got through all those interviews, CEO of this company, just wasn't good enough. So 2 months, I thought I was a hero. I was flying to Indonesia with this other company. I was like, I've made it. And then reality hit. Now, some people, I've met different walks of life. They've said to me, so you're resilient. It's like, then what did you do? So you lost your job. You're 20 odd years old. And I said, well, I had two choices. Again, I don't come from a lot of money. So I was renting out a home. And I said, no, I'm not just going to give up. I still need to pay my rent. So I ended up working back in retail for a little bit. So I went just selling clothing, for a company that I knew, working in, doing some marketing stuff, just like making ends meet while interviewing. So I was in this like weird kind of thing. Then I tried my hand at real estate again. I had an apprenticeship when I was like 16 at LG Hooker. I was like, maybe I'll, it's all related to sales. And then I remember like talking to some mentors. I think mentors are really, the most important. I still have the mentors from many years ago that I talked to. And one of them said to me, what are you doing? Why are you doing this and doing that? You have so much talent. You just need to focus and execute. If you're not focused and you're running it 4 different ways to get to buying your first property, you're not going to get there. I remember listening to that and like really thinking, and this is the time when like tech was about to absolutely pop. And I sat down and like I wrote like some things down, high level things of like what I wanted to do, what am I missing, what are my gaps, what are my skill gaps, and like how I can get there. And that was like, I had to learn really quick.
Yeah.
You have to wear so many hats when you join a US centric APJ business. So one that's scaling into APJ. You can't just say, this is my corner and this is all I'll do. You literally have to do like some marketing roles. Like you really have to be a jack of all trades at the start and really like be a sponge and be that sponge across people like I mentioned earlier, as well as our executives at the time in Okta, and sit with them. And because I was an enterprise SDR, I actually got to learn from, again, arguably top 1% strategic AEs who are now, some of them retired. They did so well and I learned from them. I just was a sponge. And I remember like, obviously I think something that I brought in as an enterprise SDR that's kind of unique is I was a door knocker. I call it like the old school kind of traditional sales. And so I always, even now, I still cold call, which we'll get to in a second, but you have to think, okay, like if I'm going to be successful, what does Ben have? What is Ben missing? That he needs to be a sponge for. And then secondly, what do I have that I can help my team? Not just my SDRs, but like the AEs as well. And you have to, because that jump from enterprise SDR to AE, sometimes it's like a really easy thing. Other times it's like, you're still green. There's a lot of things as an AE, which we'll go through in a sec, that people forget about. But it's the one thing is BD, business development, top of the funnel pipe generation. Don't be scared to pick up the phone. Be a human. Don't be a robot. All these things you and I always talked about. And I think that was unique coming in because it was like a different lens. It's like how I've door knocked like some of the scariest places in Australia. I'm not scared to pick up the phone to the CISOs of these ASX 50. I was scared when I was running around Brisbane and like people yelling at me to my face. Like that was pretty hectic. So that was unique. And we had a really strong SDR team. We built, so much pipeline with some of the biggest organizations in the country. And I remember like in our first, because I think it was 12, 13 months, I got promoted. But in the like first 6, still green. What is Okta? What is a product and solution? Oh wait, who cares about that? What's the problem? What's the capability? All those things. You won't get that if I jumped straight into an account exec role with ego, thought about my ego and didn't take the pay cut, there's no way I would have learned as quickly as I did. Like,
totally.
No way.
Yeah, it's awesome, Ben. I love that as well in terms of like what sets you apart. It's just like, what's your strength? What do you bring to the team? And if you have that one thing that just is really a differentiator for you, I think really leaning into that, which it sounds like the cold calling, not being afraid to pick the phone up, potentially in a world that is really tech driven too,
yes.
very marketing driven, that really helps to cut through the noise. What would you say?
True.
I'm keen to hear your thoughts on like what does make a top 1% rep, and potentially what you think maybe your superpower is when it comes to actually now being successful in the AE role.
There's probably a few facets to that question. I say like, and I always speak very highly of you and Kayla. You guys have this, so like it's obvious to us three now, but we had to build it. It's like you when you play football. And I wish I could play football with you, but with you and like you, but I'm never going to be as good as you. But anyway, won't go there.
We can play futsal after this, Ben. That's cool. Yeah.
You can teach me because I'm getting way too old. But you have to learn these skills. And I think some people go into it with a different mindset. Like it's that mindset shift. The top 1%, the things that I've picked up that sets the top 1%, I say sales professionals, more so than SaaS sales professionals. If you look at the best mortgage brokers, if you look at the best real estate agents, best car sales professionals, right? Actually, at one point I used to sell vehicle tracking systems for TomTom, but we'll leave that to another time. But all these things, there's maybe, I'll give you the 3. The first is, it's very obvious, but it's building relationships and always thinking what's in it for them. I use the acronym WIFM, what's in it for me. Anyway, what's in it for them? WIFeth, maybe.
We'll spell it out.
We'll spell it out, yeah. And so that is important because the person that you're trying to sell to might have come out of a really hard divorce, might have lost someone close to them, might need to pay private school fees. So many things that I have learned, all of those things from people that I've sold to. And that there is a personal connection. The top 1% know that. The other 99 don't know that because they're thinking about their sale. They're not thinking about their person. That buyer, economic buyer, as we call it in sales, or an executive sponsor, or a champion, whatever you want, it's an intrinsic and extrinsic motivation for them. What's in it for Gabe and Ben, and what's in it for them? What's the impact? Do they want a new job? They're trying to get promoted. Do they want to buy a new property, like I said? Like, all these things lead to, all right, I will now do X, Y, and Z. We'll get to that. That's going to take too long. But that's the first one, is kind of like building not just your C level. In sales, we're taught, go high, go to power, go to the higher powers to approve the budget and the spend. Okay, fine. But if you're not building your coaches, if you're not building your champions, if you're not really understanding the personality and the mentality of what they are trying to do, you'll absolutely never get to power. You have to be sometimes bullish enough to go around people, build relationships with low, mid-management, senior. If you can't do that, that's kind of the first one. The second one really is a sense of urgency. So having and you would know this, but people don't rely on, they have 1,000 vendors that they work with. Do they really think they're going to pick up the phone to Gabe and pick up the phone to Ben? No. Not only do they have 1,000 vendors, they have kids. Think about them. So that sense of urgency is very critical to how you adapt in a sale, in a deal. And I have some tips around things like how I create that sense of urgency for them and for my team. It's not just sales. We work with the smartest people. We're super fortunate to work with a team. So we'll get to the team dynamics in a second. But it's that sense of urgency is the top 1% sales that they have. It's like, hey, I know you're busy from 9 till 5 in the day. You've got 1,000 meetings with internal meetings and vendors and your family and your kids. So I'm going to put 5 minutes in your calendar from 8:45 to 5 or from 5 to 5:15 to have a call around how to progress this. It's being courteous. It's leading with empathy, and it's that sense of urgency. It's a second. There's another 3 more, but I'll wrap it here. The third is professional persistence. I think that is, again, something that I've been told by some VPs that is something that I exude. And I would say, you said, what's the standout quality? It's maybe all 3, but it's that one. Persistence, you can be annoying. You can come across as a slimy salesperson. You can come across, but you have to look at your black book of your network and how many people you've built relationships with and how many people you've built relationships with that you've got a business case over the line. You've created so much urgency. You've delivered a successful project among your team for that person. Were you annoying? Not sure, but did you act with empathy and trust and you delivered a successful project? And did you care about them? What's in it for them? And so professional persistence more is like, use all the channels you can. Text message, calling, Slack, Teams, Zoom. It doesn't matter. Face-to-face is the damn best. If you can get a coffee with someone, or a beer, you'll find out more than you ever have. If you can't, make sure you're always doing that. And I find, actually, the 6th one is LinkedIn lately. LinkedIn DMs. In the last 3-4 years, I've pivoted my channels, I call it, my different mediums. You'll get more over a LinkedIn DM than you will over a text sometimes because people are looking for the next job. People will always be active on LinkedIn. And those champions that you're building, those coaches, will actually spend a lot of time inflating their brand, inflating the external brand like we were talking about, and being active on LinkedIn. So using that as another medium for that professional persistence element is critical.
Totally agree. Big advocates as well for the LinkedIn social selling, if you want to call it that.
Yeah,
LinkedIn
I know. I've seen you guys on there. I need to learn some of your tricks.
Roll out the double triple playbook on LinkedIn.
100%.
No, it's certainly a gold mine at the moment. I've seen the big shift in the last few years too. And it keeps compounding in a sense. So it's a big pro tip for sure.
Yes,
I love the term professional persistence. I think that's actually a big. I would say that in you as well, Ben, like when we work together. But it's like, it's never like annoying. It's just like professional courtesy at the same time.
Yes.
But what do you think? Is it being anchored on the relationships, the moral compass, caring about the person first and foremost, that helps you to be professional persistent instead of annoying? How do you think you could instill that as a bit of advice for someone on how to do that?
It's a good point. And I actually learned something recently. Sometimes people will always have a perspective of others. Whatever way you frame a conversation, whatever way they think about me as a person, sometimes you will be labelled and it will hurt you. You have to be resilient. You have to not think about it. And I'm an overthinker, as you already know. So I do dwell on things. If I lose a deal, if I even win a deal, what were my lessons learned? Was I really annoying? Did I come across that way? When you look at the outcome, and sometimes you just can't change people's perspective. Not everyone will like you, and you just have to, especially in sales. That is hands down the truth. And so what I think about, like maybe one tip, is always make sure in every discussion, like we said, LinkedIn, Slack, make sure that one, you're bringing them on the journey. So what I mean by that is making sure that this coach or this champion, you over communicate, you be overly transparent, and you never not share. For example, hey, I'm blocked here and I can't get you this discount. you better tell that person, because that person's told their boss and their boss has told their boss. Will look really bad on you. So being overly transparent, oversharing, and maybe even overqualifying. The second one would be, there's a fine line between being annoying. And I have been, like, I've definitely had my fair share of stop. No, I've learned, and I think that's where the respect level comes from. A tip is, I'm really too busy to talk right now. Cool, okay. Maybe say, hey, this obvious, you respond respectfully, I need to inform our executives if this is a go, no go. And then you give them a way out. If we don't have a deal, that's okay. Because guess what? You're going to respect me more when I join a new company or I do my own thing, and we'll always be friends. And they go, you know what? It's not a priority for us right now, Ben. Thank you. Cool. You walk away.
And you get the qualification in that sharply, don't you?
Yeah.
Just very direct, explicit.
Spot on. And you would know, right? Like
Yeah.
time kills all deals, as we say. Qualify in, qualify out quickly. Or potentially, okay, you're not the right person and I'm annoying you. So you be overly transparent. I know I'm annoying you. Who else can I work with in your organization so for them to see value? So you're giving the rite of passage. They can walk away, but at least, Gabe, they're giving you that, okay, you know what? I actually can't get this. It's political. There's too many red tape. Oh, Ben, go and talk to this person. But it goes back to like, maybe you just put 5 minutes in the calendar. Maybe it is a priority. Just put it in there, in their own calendar, so that you have time for a coffee or a call. Literally, sometimes I write 5-minute call with Ben, and they accept it.
Yeah.
Which is, again, not being annoying. You're respecting their
Absolutely,
calendar.
yeah. It's a range then, for
Yeah.
sure. And then what about, so you're now selling into enterprise environments covering ANZ as well as Japan in your current role, a few other maybe Southeast Asian nation territory coverage.
Yep.
I'd love to know from your perspective, Ben, what you've learnt as like an enterprise AE now,
Yeah.
selling into arguably the largest organizations in the world, what it sort of takes maybe for the listeners too. What does it take to actually get there throughout the career? We like to map out, you can start as an SDR, you look at the pathway in the career over a longer term horizon. Here are the things, the skill sets to develop. But is there any standout reflections that you have in terms of maybe something you wish you had have known when you were an SDR at Okta versus now being a enterprise AE at Chainguard today?
So many. I think as an SDR, you always have to be, you get knocked back a lot. Send an email, not interested. Make a call, not interested. Go to an event in front of them. We already have that technology in place. Thank you. Get knocked back 20 times a day. What I wish I would have known is building up that, you know what? Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it and be resilient. If you get 20 no's, you know them. What is it? 100 no's to 1 yes. Hopefully not, but sometimes it...
Benchmark it.
Benchmark it, right? So sometimes it is like, damn, that is the case. Be really resilient. If you go in with that mindset to an SDR role, or you're in an SDR role listening to this now, just be super resilient. Because if you're not, you're always going to think it's a personality attack. It's an attack on me. No, it's not. It's not an attack on your brand. It's not an attack on you. They just don't, it's not the priority for them. It's not a real problem that you're solving. Or, and you can get deep in this, were you articulating the right message to the right ideal customer profile? This could take a long time, but yes, it's lesson learned. So maybe something that if I had known would be, am I addressing the right ideal customer profile with this messaging? Am I talking about, example, helping engineers become more efficient and productive? And I'm going to go tell that to a head of cyber or a CISO. They won't give a shit. Excuse my French. They care about reducing risk, tangible risk. What's their risk appetite? What's their risk buy down? Okay, now I'll listen to you.
Different language, right? Different stakeholders.
Spot on.
Map the stakeholders, what they care about.
Yep.
What's in it for them. But also what's in their realm of responsibility and what does that look like for them?
Yeah.
Flipping it back. Yeah.
Spot on.
Totally.
And like, you would know, right? Like, what's the impact? Because if you say that message as an SDR, they'll always go, well, I'm not going to answer the phone for Ben again because he tried to sell me something that I don't really care about. That's the guy that sits next to me. It's always thinking, all right. And it goes back to research. Something that I've been doing, like you would know, like you do it yourself. LinkedIn stalk. Stalk the shit out of your stakeholder before you call them. Hey, I know that this person's connected with this person. Hey, I knew that you were, connected to so-and-so. Like, I thought you'd be interested because they actually were we solved a real big problem for them last week. Bingo. First 10 seconds, you got their attention.
Totally. You can relate it back to the customer.
Yeah.
Even better, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Switching tact a little bit, Ben.
Yeah.
For the membership of Double Triple,
Yes.
I'd love to talk numbers now. If you're comfortable sharing, high level.
Sure.
Just your own experiences.
Are we under NDA?
Yeah, we can sign the doc later. But I'd love just, what's your experience been either personally, in your immediate friend group, colleagues?
Yep.
It's not abnormal for us to share that we know a lot of people that are earning $500,000 a year. The big $1 million AE, there is this type of language in the community because it is all the realm of the possible, having a great tech sales career.
Yep.
And again, people's motivations are different, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, want to achieve that financial independence, invest in property portfolio. I don't think there's any other career in the world where you could literally stare down the barrel from a unique background or somewhere outside of the industry and be like, I'm on the path to earning a few $100,000. So how do I get there? But what's your experience been in terms of high level numbers, what you've seen just amongst the community, like, a few $1 million and plus, right? Levels of seniority. Yeah. It's not uncommon for that to be the earning potential for a lot of people in tech sales.
Yeah. This is a different tact. And I'm going to answer this question with very generic numbers because there are some that are earning lower and there are some that are actually probably earning well over what doctors, surgeons, barristers, these are traditional jobs that when you tell your parents, they're like, all you do is sell technology. How on earth are you earning more than like a surgeon? Crazy. So I'll give you from my network over the last 10, 15 years, on your strongest years across top SaaS organizations, US SaaS organizations, it ranges from, as an enterprise account exec, ranges from maybe 150K base up to 300K base. And then you have an on-target earning portion, which is variable based on your quota. So let's say your quota is, 2 mil, 2.5 mil US. You have that variable rate that you can earn, not just if you hit your quota, but if you overachieve, you go into what we call accelerators. And then you have on top of that spiffs, So the incentives are all there. And the incentives are all there to make a lot of money, over $1 million, over sometimes as an individual contributor, over, I've seen some of the top 1% salespeople earn over $1.5 million AUD, including in US companies. When you sign, it's very lucrative. Hopefully sometimes you can obtain not just your base and your variable, but you're also earning your options. So your stock within that organization for signing, performing, you also get additional options or RSUs and stock options, which is great. And so it can be very lucrative, very, very lucrative. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Lots of uncapped potential, right? And I think it also goes to show picking the right type of company to be really successful in the market, and then yet alone the longer term potential of having a big payoff as well. If you're in a startup, publicly listing,
getting acquired.
Yeah. Moving into RSU territory and like that. There's a lot of upside for people.
Yeah. Heaps of upside. And I think some advice would be, and it's, if everyone had this magic wand, we would all be very, very rich. It just doesn't happen that way. I think the advice is, when you do your due diligence, like I was saying at the start, don't just take the advice from a recruiter who's going to sell you that dream. Don't just take the advice from people within the organization who really, really want you to join as an SDR or a manager or a VP. Obviously sell you the dream, but take the advice from, and I did this to join Chainguard. I called partners that I'd worked with and trusted at Okta for many years. Hey, is this solving a real problem? Like, how big is this software supply chain security thing? Called CTOs and CISOs, myself, and then use that in my hiring process. And I call it my black book. This is who I can go and call today or email today to get a meeting. So you're using your network. The network is the most powerful thing you can do to drive behavior. And why I said that is there's so many flashy lights. There's so many companies with AI, and hell, companies can be built like out of Australia or in India, in Israel, in the US in like a matter of months. Labor is a lot, a gentleman here was using Claude credits, explaining that like you can build a platform in a matter of like months. It used to take years sometimes. So those people will try and recruit for you, but do those three things. Do your own DD, due diligence, and just make sure that it's right for you. Because those very lucrative packages could be ceilings that you'll never reach. The quotas are far too high. And then also look at like outside investors. Who's the private equity? Who's the VC that's funding that startup? Have they been successful? Have they funded other startups that have taken, 200 mil and scaled like a, Snowflake or a Canva type equivalent to like the rocket ships that you and I, always talk about. So just be mindful, I would say. Don't be careful, just be mindful and do your own research.
Yeah, totally. And just to wrap up, Ben, I'm really excited to hear next frontier for you. But before I jump into that, what's your view in terms of just global outlook and perspective when you're looking at tech companies, US founded, funded versus maybe Israeli in our world and cyber? I think all the darlings are there, best of the best. Aussie startups, the innovation landscape here is really heating up and it's really growing.
Yeah.
Have you got maybe a big bet or a future prediction if you're thinking about someone in the double triple program, how they might evaluate the difference between the three perhaps for their careers?
Yeah, no, good point. Yes, I think I would, the US has, all the historical data to prove why the US has the most successful startups and rocket ships. But my piece of advice would be, again, going back to that, my big bet would be now with the economy and things that are changing in the world and some political turmoil, maybe just be mindful that they're outside of the US. There are some really hot companies getting really interesting outside investment and being, not just bootstrapped by the CEOs, but seeing some VCs throw some big money. And I've seen some big raises just in our landscape too, in the software supply chain security space that Chainguard competes against. Some really recent big rounds of funding, and they're not necessarily just from US investment, they're from everywhere. And so keep your eyes open. Me personally, I'm obviously still bullish on the US, but I'm also very bullish on Israeli and Australian tech companies. I think that the CEOs of Israeli and Australian organizations are exceptionally bright, exceptionally talented humans. They see a vision, a strategy, and they're really good at leading and executing, and that conviction. And you need to follow that. So when you do your due diligence, it doesn't matter that they have 5 people or 10 people. Look at the CEO, look where they've come from. Are they historically, again, stalk their LinkedIn, do your background checking. In fact, I'd go one step further and talk to VCs, talk to Australian VCs, talk to your network, talk to you guys about what's coming, what's that investment look like, what does this company do? Gabe, can you help me understand what they actually do? What are the problems they solve? Who are their competitors? So you guys are there, right, to help your listeners and to get really, really far in their careers. But if you're just starting out, I wouldn't just be hell-bent on you looking at US. No, not right now. Not with what's going on. So, yeah, my big bets are definitely all three, as well as like India. India is a huge market. Look at the investment from Azure and GCP and AWS into those regions and those data centers. So, yeah, some exciting stuff. And last thing is, if it has the word AI in it, yes, obviously, but what are the use cases? What are the problems it's solving? Is it unique? Is it not? And that's where your judgment call comes in, and the networks advisors you can help to make that decision for you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
All right.
Love it, Ben.
Right.
We'll stay tuned for the double triple syndicate and world domination plans from here. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, pumped.
Very
Thank you
cool.
so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people want to connect with you, is LinkedIn the place to do that?
I can share my LinkedIn
Yeah.
with you. So, yeah, Ben Lanciano on LinkedIn. And definitely, yeah, any advice, any coaching, mentoring you need, I'm always here. So, very proud of what you guys have achieved. And, yeah, let's fucking go.
Let's go. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you jumping on the podcast. We'll have to get you in one of the coaching calls in the future. So, appreciate you being a guest and can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, awesome. Nice work. Cheers, Gabe.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.